Good afternoon in Bulavinaka, and welcome to another segment of Speak Your Mind, a radio talkback show live on Gold FM. Now, with November designated as a non-communicable disease month in Fiji, the Educating for Sustainable project has decided to have this month applicable to stage their art exhibition, Sokota. Now, in studio with us this afternoon, we have their project manager, Mr. Peter Sipeli, and also Mr. Dave Lavaki, who's one of the artists who is going to have his piece also on exhibit this coming week. Bulavinaka, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us.
Bula.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, now it was interesting to read about the project, Peter. Now, for the benefit of our listeners, can you please tell us, how did this initiative come about?
Okay, this is a health project, and I think people, as we talk about Sokota, and I have been recently, people forget that. They just kind of talk about the exhibition.
Right.
This is a health response. And I think, when people talk about NCDs in the media, there isn't enough seriousness. We need to refer to it as an epidemic. Just so you understand that kind of level of seriousness, that too many people are dying. This came about because we realized that people don't respond to health messages. There's stuff on the radio, we're telling people stuff on television, they're reading about NCDs and what they need to eat in the newspaper, and it's not happening. The message is not sinking through. This project is based on the idea that can arts be used as a tool for awareness? And it came from that feeling, that space. And so I work for the School of Medicine, and I have the most incredible boss the world has ever produced. And he's really enabling and amazing. So we've been working in this area using arts as a tool for communication, for rehabilitation in the last couple of years. Last year, we developed the conversation with the ministry. Hey, how about the arts? In Fiji, we talk about culture. We're really close to those kind of things, like it's tangible.
Right.
How can we use it? That's where it came from.
Okay. Now, I believe there's a team of you that's all involved in this project.
Yeah. For me, because I don't have the academic skill and I don't have that academic kind of cred, I always thought that I was a bit less. So what I do is I conceptualize projects like this, and then I take it to the experts. I take it to people I work with in public health, and we discuss it. Then I take it to, so people on the project are Frances Koya. She's a PhD graduate. She's a tutor in education at USP. She's worked in areas of sustainable education like this. And I also work with, also on my project team is Vivian Costa. Vivian Costa is the rapporteur. So basically, as part of the project, she's been ensuring that we're documenting the project as we go.
Right.
I also have on my project with me, his name is Lingikoni Vakota. Lingikoni is one of the most senior artists in this country. He is a recipient of the Commonwealth Art Prize that got him to work in places like New Zealand and then London. He's just completing his thesis. So in terms of academic qualifications, he would be that artist that's the most senior here. So I thought it would be important to use him as a curator and an arts advisor on the project. Because this whole idea about using arts to communicate health, to create discussion around things like this, is relatively new. And Lingi commands quite a lot of respect in the arts community. So when people hear his name, people feel a little bit more safe. So really, my project team is very small. Francis, Vivian, Lingi, they were on the execution team. People I report to is Dr. Tukana from the Wellness Unit at the Ministry of Health, who provided funding, and the Dean of the College of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences that provided the top-up funding.
Okay. Well, Dave, are you also involved in the project side of things, apart from the artwork?
I think when it was actually just still a concept, Peter had invited me to come and just sort of, I think, give a point of view from an urban artist there.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've been kind of involved from the beginning. I know, and also Peter and I are like related through marriage. And so we have a lot of discussions about things like this. And when he first started talking about using art to sort of, make awareness about non-communicable diseases, I was involved in a lot of initial discussions, and then eventually through Lingikoni and Peter and Francis, I got invited to be one of the exhibiting artists for the thing coming up this week.
Okay. Peter, I also read that education is actually the core of this initiative.
Yes.
Now, you also mentioned formal and non-formal education.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on this?
Of course. The idea of the project to use art for awareness is a long, engaging process. So the process is using existing arts agencies to identify the artists, because otherwise we'd just be pulling all our favorite friends who are artists.
Right.
So we needed to create a really nice and transparent process. So what we did was create discussions with national level with the Fiji Arts Council. We went and talked to people at Oceania Center at USP. We went down to the West and talked to people in creativity in the West, just gauging how people were feeling about it. And art has been used in many ways before, and it's still used in school. So art is something that people feel quite, in the arts sector, feel quite confident that, of course, we can use it for communication. So people were really receptive to the idea. We found 20 artists through this consultation has been nominated from the different arts agencies. These artists went through a formal process first. They were brought into, and they were given, they went through a workshop for them to understand about the prevalence of NCDs, how NCDs develops in people, nutrition from an early age, the problems with malnutrition, the people that are, the reason why we have this disease. So they went through a really formal training where they got from the health experts the problem that we're currently facing. Non-formal spaces was after that formalized workshop week. We had something like 23 weeks where every week the artists would come into a discussion process. Every Thursday, 20 artists would gather at Brown Street at the Hoodless House conference room, and we would talk about this concept and talk about health and talk about art and how we can do it. So that was the informal process. But, also inside of that, there was also things that we had to do. The art sector in this country is really undeveloped, is untapped, and is not formalized. So that means that artists are not on a database. There isn't some database you can go and click and bang, you get artists. It isn't like that. They're still developing that at national level. Artists don't have bios. Artists don't have CVs. And it's just because it's not formalized. So people that can paint, just paint from pure passion and don't develop professionally. So we, inside of developing inside of that informal space, as well as talking about health and trying to get the artists to understand health and for us to discuss it, we were also building profiles of the artists, creating little bios for them and getting them to understand concept before production. In Fiji, art is really produced for sale, for livelihoods. People produce art to sell so they can live and eat. So it means art comes from that kind of space.
Okay.
So for us, we had to really look at that and then really help people try and think of art conceptually. So that informal space was about developing the conversation about what do you think you're going to create, really, how are you going to create it, where are you going to get it from, getting them to think about those kind of things before we get there. It's been a long 9 months.
I know, it sounded like it was a long process.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk more about this when we get back. If you just joined us, you're on Speak Your Mind. We're heading into a break, but we'll be back with more. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, where we're talking once again with Mr. Peter Sipeli. He is the manager, a project manager for the Educating for Sustainable project. Now, Peter, when were the earlier discussions? When did you come up with the earlier concept before you guys came through this whole process?
Wow.
How far back was it?
I think I've been sitting on this idea now for about 2 years.
Wow.
Because we've been working in this area at the college, I think close to 4, maybe 3 and a bit years. About, initially we had started working with, it started like this. 3 years ago, the CWM threw out all of their rubbish and dumped it in our backyard. It's at Hoodless House. So basically we just had old chairs, broken beds, and, we were talking like a mountain of rubbish.
Right.
So then the dean saw it, and the dean said, we need to get rid of it, Peter. How the hell are we going to get rid of it? And I thought, I don't know. Okay. So I thought, well, how about we try and turn it into an arts project? He said, go ahead, think about it, and let's do it. I approached they're called CROP. It stands for Community Recovery Outreach Project.
Right.
This project takes people that are outpatients from St. Giles, who have left St. Giles from treatment and are living at home. They run a little project. And so 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they bring in these survivors of mental illness, and they run arts workshops and they run discussion sessions. And I really liked that project. I used to go and help out where I could. And I thought, wow, how great would it be for them to sit? conceptualize ideas of making art using rubbish and getting artists to help them
Right.
create these structures or conceptualize the structures, and then use the rubbish to make art structures. And they did it, and they made amazing things. And we had an exhibition at the museum, and there was a lot of great responses. We got a lot of great media people. I mean, like FBC came and covered it. And from there, I was thinking like, wow, this was so successful. I mean, these psychiatric survivors used it as a way to rehabilitate. Like, they were talking to each other. They were talking to, me about their problems. We were discussing it. I was documenting them as we were going through this. So then the idea was born that, wow, from just a simple idea, we managed to create art. We managed to discuss mental illness. And we managed to work with artists to conceptualize things and bring it to life. How about something bigger? And then I talked to Francis, and then we helped develop it further. But it didn't develop out of just that. I mean, I took it to the ministry and said, what do you people think of this idea?
Right.
So a lot of people, like Dr. Tukana and the Dean, are people that work in public health. So they already come from that understanding that art is an amazing, powerful tool. And they added bits to the little pot. And so a lot of people added their bits. And it wasn't, I came up with the initial idea, but it's been a lot of contributions.
So it's come a long way.
It has.
2 years down, and we've got the art exhibition finally be launched on Thursday.
Yes.
Okay, what are your goals from here on out after the exhibition? What do you see? Where do you see this project going in another 5 or 10 years' time?
I want to take it back though, and I wanted Dave to respond to this. The giving people information and giving them information in a space that they are receiving the information and absorbing the information, creating that space is pretty important.
Right.
And I think we managed to do that in this project. And the power of this project was working with 20 people for people to holistically and genuinely understand and respond to health. We respond to it like this. My mother she died from NCDs. I come from a family that my mother's side all have diabetes and my father's side have bad hearts, NCD-related preventable illnesses. But it's become hereditary because we carried on those cultural behaviors.
That's true.
And Dave, I wanted Dave to respond to this because it wasn't just artists getting information and making art. It was a process. And I think, Dave would be able to respond to that even before we talk about the exhibition.
Yeah. David, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think because the process was nice and long, there's a lot of mentoring in it. What happened was it made us, like the thing with, if you're making commercials about such a topic, like you're trying to create awareness through a commercial campaign about NCDs. The thing is, you're given details and you write this thing and then that's it. But for art, it's different. Like if you were to write a song, it's quite a personal touch from the artist itself. In a way, they're not just like trying to educate people about what's going on in their lives. It's a place for the artist to vent. Their art is a place for them to vent. Right. So what's happened is, in all the discussions and all, you're sitting around with other 20 artists, you realize that everyone, in some way, NCDs has affected their lives, like their nuclear families or anybody, or people around them. And so what they did was, in the art project, they're creating awareness, but at the same time, they're using the process and the project itself to deal with how they've been suffering with NCDs. That's how I feel. And I think a lot of people feel like that. So it really speaks out in the art itself. Because when we started to look at it, when you look at statistics, when we went through that whole, we did a 1 solid week of just learning about NCDs and what wellness is. And then you sit down and you really realize, oh, actually, this has really affected my family. A lot of people don't realize that they fall into the category. NCDs, I think the deaths last year was like 83%, which is humongous. So when we started looking at it, when I look at my family, my mom's nuclear family, out of her 5 members, 4 of them died from NCDs, and there's only one person left in that family, and she's in her early 40s. So that was kind of the thing. Everyone in the out of the 20 had that same kind of that kind of relation to NCDs, or were affected somehow like that. So when artists take it on, for them it's a way that they deal with how NCDs has affected them. At the same time, they're educating a new audience about NCDs And so it's got a very strong personal touch in the
That's
art.
so true. So, like, that's where Peter was talking about the non-formal and also the formal education. And this is where he
Yes.
tied in with the artists themselves,
Yeah.
having to learn about it
Yep.
and then go and take that out to the community.
Yep.
Mm.
Because
20 people, their families, that's a big number.
It is.
I think for the first nine months or something, we never did any artwork at all.
Wow.
It was just sitting in discussions and learning and getting mentored by artists and knowing how you can use art for awareness, looking at examples, getting one-on-one sessions with people like Lincoln is a big privilege
Right.
for people in the arts community. That's a big thing to be able to get that opportunity. So the first we didn't actually start any work. Well, I didn't start any work till about October or August, September.
Right.
But we were all engaged in this project from January. So 9 months of just learning and discussions and learning and discussions. And I think it's quite evident in the artwork that it wasn't, it's not something that, here's an idea, go and do something with it. It was, it's something that we really took on.
You had to be educated in order to create.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
A very long process.
It is.
And I'm actually pretty excited to catch it on Thursday. Now, there was also a mention of the final phase of the project, which is collaborating with health promoting schools.
Yes.
Okay, what do you mean by health promoting schools?
Okay. There is a project that's run by the ministry that's managed by WHO called the Health Promoting Schools Project. There are 94 schools across the country that run a health promotion project. Each school has a different intervention. Some do lunchbox audits. Some rural schools grow vegetables. Others do more classroom-based approaches. So each school has a different approach. We have 16 schools from in Suva, based in Suva, and some coming from Nosori as far as Taelevu that are coming to view the exhibition. Because we've trained artists, they've responded in the form of artwork that is going to be showcased and launched this Thursday. The schools is a way of testing to see if they get it.
Okay.
And because children are amazing and their minds are still fresh and open and alive, we would get quite a lot of amazing, interesting responses.
That's so true. Well, thank you, Peter. We'll be back with that. But once again, we're heading into a break. We'll be back with more. Bulavinaka, and welcome once again to Speak Your Mind, a show where we're using art to create awareness of NCDs in our community. Now, Peter, tell us a little bit more about some of the workshops that you guys had organized for the artists themselves. You were talking about a particular training skill that you had to work on.
Yeah. A process of getting people to internalize health is for them to understand the impact of NCDs. And the impact of NCDs is the number of people dying. The losses exercise was about asking every of the 20 participants to come in the next day with 5 names of 5 people that they know that had passed away in the last 5 years, and what did they pass away of.
Mm-hmm.
And then people come and say, oh, my aunt and this person I knew. And you'd find that across the board, it was all the same. People were all dying of heart attacks, stroke-related illnesses, heart attacks, all these kind of things were very similar. When people realize that, wow, like Dave had said earlier, we're survivors of NCDs, then you get that kind of get that internal acceptance. And I think for a lot of people, that really was the turning point, because then they could say that, wow, my mother died of NCDs. I love my mother. She shouldn't have died. And then you start to question why.
Right.
That, I think, helped a lot of the artists to really take it on board. And one thing that I wanted to talk about was that if you look at the pieces on display, we have about 43 pieces of artwork from these 19 artists. All of them talk about the family unit, and they come back to the family unit. And that's interesting, because when you think of ministry, not the ministry, and I shouldn't say that the ministry isn't doing a good job, because they're doing a job. They're doing as best as they can. And I just feel as though the messages that people are getting are very individual. So they'd say, eat the right foods to you. But we consume food in groups. We consume food in families. And the artist was saying, bring back the
family focus.
Bring back the focus to the family. We eat in groups. We talk and live in groups. We need to discuss what we're eating inside of those groups. Those I thought were really interesting kind of like points, because it's great information for people like the ministry and the people at the School of Medicine to know. And I think the quality of the work at the exhibition is really high standard. I think the dancers, even though, I mean, we were working with people as young as 17,
Yeah.
and the professionalism of these young people. And I think just, it's not really the project, but I think it's just when you treat artists like professionals and give them the space for them to blossom and then give them funding to execute the dream,
Right,
you
right.
create these little ambassadors.
That's so true.
And people are able to, I mean, like, when you come on Thursday and the public come when it's open to the public from Friday the 15th onwards till the 6th of December, you'd talk to the artists and you'd see the responses and you'd get some real responses. Like Ren and Lithia are dancers with Oceania Center. Their story is simple. Their story is when a father has a heart attack and dies and how that affects a family economically, socially, what happens to the structure of that family. Those are interesting things. And when we talk about NCDs, we seem to only talk about the disease and how to stop yourself from getting it.
That's
We
so
don't talk
true.
about loss.
No.
You know, when you talk about loss, then people think, I didn't want my mother to die. I wanted her to be healthy and be alive till she's 90. Why not? How can I be healthy and live till 90? Then you get those kind of conversations. And that's the discussion that we want to initiate.
Right. Dave, you also talked about how this workshop impacted you and your family.
Yep.
What changes since then until, like the art exhibition on Thursday? Have you made changes in your family
Personal
focus
life.
as well? Yeah, in your personal
I was
life.
just think about like my diet and all. I think it's just about being conscious, like being very conscious about what you're doing. With my piece, there was a lot of I used a lot of statistics and did a lot of research and reading. And I have a 1.5-year-old son now, so just like when I read that, I freak out about it a bit, and then now I'm like trying to keep him away from a lot of things. So it's impacted me like that. I think everybody in the group has been affected like that in doing their own sort of research and discovering what NCDs means and what Peter's talking about, like the other consequences. Because a lot of times you just look at, okay, this fella died from from a heart attack. He ate too much fat or he ate too much rich food or whatever it is. But when you actually think about the entire breakdown, like the stress that it lays on the mother
family.
of the family, trying to raise 3 kids. So a lot of the others were looking at it from that point of view,
Right.
like, wow, this is this is how it affects us. It's not just about this one person dying, it's about this chain reaction. For me, that's how I've been looking at it. Like I just, everything around me now is like, I have that kind of, I double think things now. And I think that's the first step. Just being a little bit more conscious about like what you're doing. I think we've all become kind of ambassadors. So every time you go somewhere, you see gang doing something that might be doing them long-term harm. You can't help but talk about it, like, wait, this actually does this to you, or this. And the other thing is, it's given me a lot of, the project's really given me a lot of, made me ask a lot of deeper rooted questions. Because before it's just like, okay, fat or sugar, a lot of sugar becomes diabetes, and that's it. What's the in between? Like, what's the actual thing
Just
that
the
actually causes?
basics,
Yeah, that's you just you. That's how you equate things.
Right.
But like the project itself has made me like, why? What exactly in it? Like, then you find out things like, oh, it's actually insulin resistance, or it's this, or it's that. Why is canned food bad? Oh no, it's not just the fatty content. There's things like BPA that's in canned food that causes this kind of problem. So I've started to question things more. I think is probably the biggest thing for me in my life. Like, that's one of the biggest changes I've probably made. It's just like, instead of just going ahead and eating things, or it's I can't say that I've become like a role model kind of citizen, but I've definitely started asking a lot more questions about the things that we do. And I think it's things that just me going home and talking about it to my wife, I think it definitely has a positive effect.
Right.
Just like sitting there, like my whole family's kind of been involved in the process, because when I find out something, I go home and I tell them, or I talk about it to them, and I'm like, boy, this and this is actually caused by this.
Exactly.
There were friends that other artists that came home yesterday, and I had played them some of the stuff that I was working on, and it's the same thing. It's about raising questions. So for me, I think that's the immediate thing. That's kind of that's how it's sort of changed me. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of the artists in the exhibition. It's just like they're looking at it like that, because I think because it was such a long, like a big, nice, long process, that things are done by steps. It's not like you're going to wake up today and you're like, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to train every day from this time, I'm going to start going to church, I'm going to go and educate people. Like, it's too big.
That's
so
true.
the first, for me, the immediate step is about asking more questions about, what exactly is causing these things before I go in and overindulge in something. Like, how does this affect me? So that's the biggest change for me.
Okay, Dave, I'm going to challenge you on this one. You know, in Fiji, a lot of the time people ask, we're so used to listening to someone stating or preaching or saying something and saying, are you even putting that into practice?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're all about this. Are you even putting that into practice? But, well, I've just been signaled that it's time for a break, but we'll continue this conversation. This will give you time to think about it. Okay, if you just joined us, you're on Speak Your Mind. We're heading to a break, but we'll be back. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, and we're joined in studio by, Mr. Dave Lavaki, one of the artists for the upcoming Sokota exhibition this week, and also Mr. Peter Sipeli. All right, continuing on our conversation, Dave, don't worry, I haven't let you off the hook yet. But yes, like you said, it's been a 9-month-long process. You know, your first step was being conscious. Like I said, in Fiji, a lot of us, part of talking about things and taking things to the community is also practicing it. What has that been for you? Have you had to make drastic changes, or are you taking it step by step, realistically?
Realistically, yeah. No, for me, like I said, I think consciousness is just being conscious about things is my first step. I think one of the things about, you know, when we taught things or when we told things by other people, when they're like, don't do this because this and that. The hard thing is, if the person is not being real, it's hard for you to respond back real. Like,
exactly.
Because you look at that, you're like, oh man, this fellow's a hypocrite. So
right.
like, if someone's trying to, you know, do as I say, not as I do, it's kind of hard to follow. So
right.
For me, it's just like, I'm far from like a healthy role model, like
right.
in all honesty, but definitely the consciousness has kicked in, and I think what it's going to translate to is you know, I'm not sure what the second step is, but it is affecting like how I eat. It is affecting how I do things. I definitely I was sick like 2 weeks ago, and I'm a bit more worried when I'm sick now. Before, it's like something that you brush off and you kind of,
right.
But it's also knowing like little things, important things like rest. You know, it's not drastic things like, oh, you have to go running and you have to start eating only vegetables. It's like little things like that is kind of the thing, is the thing that's making me tick right now. I've also in doing this project, I think what I've also realized is, like, if we're trying to pass on a message to people, when Peter first started talking about this project, we kind of, for a lot of us at the age we're at right now as artists, we kind of, we're not really the target market for the message. What we're trying to do is we're trying to instill healthy habits in younger people, right?
Right.
So when they're like 7, 6 years old, they start practicing these things now. Because I was getting, like, when we're like 25, 30, we're a bit, you know, it's a bit harder to change
right.
us. And in trying to educate somebody younger about doing something like that, I think that for us, the best thing we can do is be as real as we can be.
Exactly.
Before trying to pass on a message or preach some kind of gospel to them about, you know, their lifestyles. The consciousness is definitely the first step for me. And then I'll give you a personal call to tell you how my second is.
I'll be waiting for that call, Dave.
But you know, that's an interesting discussion, because change is difficult.
It is.
And you know, just telling people they need to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, that's hard.
It is.
Because, like, eating is cultural.
Yep.
The types of food that we eat sometimes is decided by our mothers or our wives. Like, you know, like there's somebody that's cooking the food far removed from everybody else.
Right.
So all the kids and the daddy and everybody's at work and learning how to behave and everything, and they go home and then they have a certain type of meal. But the other factors is that, like, what does culture tells us about health? What does our culture tell us about health? You know what my culture tells me about health? If you find a pig, kill it and eat it. Eat a lot of food. When you go somewhere, like they say those kind of things, and that's what culture taught me. You know, like, we got to eat like a pig. we got to relearn things. Like, this whole process of changing and learning new habits is a big process, which is the reason that we understand people as old as us. Unfortunately, we might be headed down the hill, you know, over the hill, which means kind of like dead. The younger ones is the ones that we need to concentrate on
That's so
and
true.
try and change that. Because I think, I mean, just for me, I try to give up chicken because chicken is full of hormones and it's bad for you and it's going to make you fat. And I gave up chicken. It's hard to give up chicken in Suva. Everywhere you go, there's yummy chicken.
And an interesting thing was the focus on the family. Like, we do not do our shopping as individuals. It's always a family focus.
Yes.
So the fact that you also trying to target the family focus in this is actually a good thing because, like I said, one person buys for everybody else. When we cook, we do not cook separate because we're thinking about economize it. So we're always doing it as a family. It has to be something that's healthy for everybody.
Yeah.
So a good concept right there. Okay, let's move on to the artwork.
Yes.
Okay, 19 artists in this project. Most of them have never engaged in a project of this nature. Now, apparently, Sokoto has expanded the art view from the works of which is more, excuse me, diverse. The first thing that came to my mind was art exhibit. The first thing that I thought was, painting.
Yes.
But what other venues of art have you been has been introduced into this exhibit?
Ooh, across the spectrum. I mean, Dave is one of those people that, like when I met him earlier and I was telling the other projects people that, we must have Dave as part of the artist. And they said, why? I thought, well, he's Dave Lavaki. He's Mr. Grin. He has a lot of like national appeal to Young Gang.
Exactly.
Like Young Gang thing, oh my gosh, he's a rapper. And they would, most certainly young people would listen to Dave Lavaki. I mean, I don't because I listen to classical music. I'm very fancy.
Right.
But he had that kind of appeal. And I thought that'd be interesting. But it's incredibly across the board. We have painters, visual artists, we have carvers, masi makers, potters, there's dancers. I mean, Dave's piece is more visuals and music. Like he's used this whole beatbox approach. There's somebody that's just doing a song. Like it's across the spectrum, and you almost get everything. And it's funny, as a spoken word artist and as a poet, there's no poetry.
I know. I was going to say you didn't introduce that in your. You should have been part of the exhibit as well.
Well, it's people aren't on the street trying to sell poetry. Like it's hard to just find somebody like that. Like other artists are selling stuff.
I thought the message. It was the message, not the selling point.
That's true.
See, something you might want to consider next time. But Dave, I believe yours is the mixed media installation using local concepts. Now, tell us more about this. What was the process, and how was that a challenge for you?
So I had probably like everybody else. I probably had like 3,000 concepts after 9 months of just like meeting, and then they're like, okay, set, now work on one art piece after 9 months of information. It kind of went wild in my head, and then eventually what I came down to was basically all the as many things that day-to-day things that we associate with making NCDs or causing NCDs, like junk food, salt, frying food, different things like that. What I did was I went around with Benny Terra, who's who works with me and is a good friend of mine. We went around and recorded sound samples and made video. What I wanted to do initially was just to make music out of all these sound samples from things that are associated with causing NCDs. So like if it's opening, if you think about alcohol abuse, then you think about opening a beer bottle.
Right.
So that sound, just the bottle top popping.
And you collaborated all of them together.
So all the different sounds, like it starts with sugar being in a jar and it shakes, and that's the shaker. And the whole tempo for the piece was taken off the average human heartbeat tempo.
Right.
And so I made my piece out of that. Initially, it was just something that was supposed to be music, but then if I'm trying to give it to a new audience, it wouldn't make sense. So then video came in and statistics came in, and now I think it's like where it should be as an art piece.
Very nice. I've actually taken a look at this video, and if you can, make it to the artwork and have a look at it. Have a look at it for yourself. It's pretty good. But yes, we're actually heading into a break, but we'll be back with our final segment. Welcome back to our final segment for the day, and yes, continuing with our conversation with Mr. Dave Lavaki. Dave, what was it like working with all the other artists on the exhibition?
I think when Peter was talking about the like such a wide spectrum, like there's so many different kinds of different types of art that you can come and see. It's not just about painting. There's visual art, there's multimedia art, there's dance, there's music. I think that was one of the biggest, coolest things for me, like working with traditional artists, people that have had carving, like 4th or 5th generation carvers, and their whole family has survived on just, doing things like carving. it really opened my eyes up, opened my eyes in terms of art. Traditional potters like gang that do that make pots in such a traditional way. Like I remember in one of the afternoon sessions we were talking, and we asked if we could go and watch a process, and they said no, you know, traditionally you're not allowed to. We're not allowed to show people how we do this.
Okay.
So it's like two sides. It's really extreme. You've got people like that, and then you've got people like us that use computers and cameras, and it's
Right.
so it was really enriching. The experience was really enriching to work with, you know, with 19 other really great artists. For me, it's the first time I've ever been part of an exhibition. I just really just write songs and poetry. And this is a very different thing for me. And I think a lot of the other artists felt kind of the same way. For dancers, you know, they normally feel like they just go out and dance. Now they actually have to prepare a piece that goes on an exhibition.
Right.
So when we're sitting in this room of 19 other artists with 19 or 18 other artists, and you're trying to figure out how to, you know, what this is, like what you're doing, and how you're going to match up against these other 18 people. The thing is, you really realize that art is a real universal language, because sitting in those spaces, never mind what the background, what the circumstances are of each individual, when we sit down, it's like we understand each other.
Exactly.
You know, it breaks the language barrier. Like you have artists that only speak English, then you have artists that only speak Fijian. But when we sit down in that room, they kind of know they relate. You know, and sometimes even better than people that speak plain English. Like it's like this deeper understanding. So yeah, it was a very, like, working with the other 18 artists was for me, it was a very enriching process.
Saying that you worked with the other artists, I know for you, like you said, you had the concept going in your head, started around August, September. How long have some of them had to work on their particular pieces?
I think everyone kind of, because we gave in a concept note, I think about 2 months before we actually started doing the work.
Okay.
A lot of people, I'm not sure, but a few people actually changed it. The entire concepts changed. When we started, I remember in January, February, when people started getting excited just after the first, second conversations, we were like, they already, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I had this big commercial campaign that I wanted to work on that, and everyone kind of had an idea of what they wanted to do, and it just kept changing along the way. So I think in our minds, we've all kind of been working from February.
Yes.
But like in the actual, I think some of the covers actually started a bit earlier. Because their process, it physically takes longer.
Yes.
But for a lot of us, I think it was around August, September where we started really getting down and dirty, like really putting stuff into formation, where it was actually putting paint on canvas, where it was actually recording sounds, where it was actually filming stuff. Choreographers, I think the dancers as well, because like it's such a even when you finalize, you say, okay, Sep, I know what my concept is going to be now. I'm going to do this. This is going to be my art form. Then you have to figure out how that translates in your art form. Like for a dancer, like if they're trying to tell a story about, NCDs disrupting a family, a family lineage or whatever it is, how do they do that in a sequence of moves? So
Right.
it's like double or triple translations. First you figure out your concept, then figure out how you're going to perform it in art, and then you figure out how that translates to your audience. So it's I mean, while we're saying that, I think for all the different artists it was different.
Different.
It's a very different process because we're all from very different art forms.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Peter,
Yes.
come Thursday, the big launch. Tell us a little bit of what's planned for the evening.
Okay. Thursday is the official launch of the exhibition. All the invites have gone out. We anticipate to host a cocktail at the beginning of the night. People then come into the exhibition, and because we're presenting these pieces to people, we are having to present the dance pieces live, so they get to perform live. And it's pretty complex. I mean, just the production of it, because one of the dance pieces is about Fijians, all of our love of butter. You know how we eat more butter than we actually do bread?
True.
And everybody does it. Those who say no are just bluffing. So, but she, in order to indicate that it's butter, she's dyed flour, and she uses flour.
Right.
Like flour. So you got a really messy performance.
Okay.
So just having to turn that into a program is like, how do we put this? Because we need to use the stage.
Exactly.
And she needs to use the stage as well too. So we're looking to host about 200 people at the launch. We're looking to showcase pieces and present them to our guests we have about sitting at about 32 minutes of formalities,
Nice.
which in my mind is pretty long.
That's pretty long.
Yes. So we're just trying to nail that and trying to kind of bring it back. The preparation process is also about getting the artists ready.
Yeah.
And having kind of real conversations like, we can't get drunk on the night. We really have to be amazing. And we have to talk to people. You must make sure you have your business cards with you. So, so you're presenting.
Exactly.
And so for the artists, as well as mentoring and getting their kind of professionalism in terms of like getting their bios and things ready, is also this kind of advice about, we need to kind of get ready. We need to look pretty. We need to have nice, clean clothes, like that kind of stuff.
Okay, I know one of the, like I said, at every function, every launch is always about grabbing the people. Now,
Yes.
for the caterers, food is one of the biggest grabs.
Yes.
Are you looking at very healthy healthy nibbles?
We have discussed this at length, and most certainly. So the discussions was about, how can we have yummy things and make sure that it's healthy things?
Right.
Okay, we need to make sure we should also have fruits at a cocktail. Are you serious? Like, so
Yeah.
it's this whole negotiation thing. My boss, the Dean Rouse, is incredible and is a real advocate about healthy eating.
Okay.
And like all of us, like, if you're from Suva and you're at a cocktail and you get something boring, you're going to say, look, where's the shrimp? Why are you bringing me this vegetable stuff? Like you'd ask that.
So we can expect a mix of a variety.
I think that we need to represent life and we need to have
we
a
will.
variety.
Of course.
Yes.
So we can catch the official opening the official launch on Thursday, but the exhibition will be open to the public on Friday.
On Friday. And
Okay,
then
and where can they get this?
They are coming down to FNU Raiwai Uni Studios. It's called. You can get a bus down there. You can get a taxi.
Okay.
The hours are open from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. We're open Monday to Fridays.
Okay.
At the moment, we're negotiating to open on Saturdays because we also understand that Sue is a busy place. People got work. And so we're trying to make sure we're open on the weekends too.
Okay, we'll get that confirmed and then we'll let the public know.
Okay.
But once again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the
Thank you
show.
very much
And
for
good luck
having
for
us.
Thursday.
Thank you.
I will Speak Your Mind for today. We'll catch you same time, same place next week.